And we're back with more of that sweet, sweet toxicity. And the reason why I'm covering this Dave Rubin video is simply for the lulz. He he doesn't have many ties in the right-wing media that haven't dunked on him, and he's kind of the butt of a joke for a lot of leftists. And so I was hoping to get into this just a little chill back video. It's only 7 minutes long. How bad could it be? But yeah, we're gonna close it out with that after all of that stock market nonsense. Oh man, I can't wait for this. Just remember that Larry King took a phone call on his show for 5 minutes while he just sat there, just seething with like, why is my idol doing this to me?
So I want to ask you about two things.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about what your liberal friends are saying about Biden now in California. But at first, before we leave COVID, Gavin Newsom, all of a sudden, he found Jesus, and he was like, "We've all been healed," and is opened outdoor dining.
Yeah.
And next week, maybe some additional openings. What was the religion he found?
What I find very interesting is that we're still in like the worst of the pandemic, and it's not really a great idea to not have lockdowns and paying people to stay home, especially when we have the most deaths in the most cases. But we're not going to do that. So I find it very interesting that now Gavin Newsom is doing that thing that the conservatives have been like just ringing about like how you have to reopen the economy, get business going so people can live dignified lives. And now that it's actually happening, it's something that they have to counteract and make Gavin Newsom look ridiculous about. I don't really like Gavin Newsom. I don't like a lot of establishment leadership, but I just want to highlight here how like for the longest time they're like open it, and now that when he did, they're just like, how ridiculous is this?
It's an abject load of BS. This guy is the worst. When you think about what the worst sort of elitist politician who wants to live one way and have their minions live another way, he is the poster boy. You know what I mean?
He like Dave Rubin is a pro at calling politicians tin pot dictators without calling them tin pot dictators.
The whole French Laundry story.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 people went out to dinner, not social distancing, no masks, $15,000 in alcohol. I know you don't drink, Glenn.
Holy cow, that's a lot of alcohol.
And listen, I like wine, but
Yeah.
that's $15,000 for 22 people. Okay, so that's about $750 in alcohol per person, not even the meal. Okay.
Wow.
Look, it's just obvious what this guy has done, which is that this thing was political. These lockdowns were political. They wanted to take out Trump. If the lockdowns made any sense, then the numbers in Florida and Texas would be exponentially higher than in places like New York and California. And the simple truth.
But those places also have accusations of undercounting their cases, especially Florida. So I just find that to be very interesting.
Is not only are they not, in many cases they're actually less. It's just that simple. Like if you told me lockdowns work, all right, well let's look at it. We got a lockdown place, we got an open place.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And I'm here in Texas and I've been to Florida, and guess what? A lot of happy people. You can see people smiling and going out and business as usual.
It's not business as usual.
Yeah.
To us,
yeah.
what's happening in Texas is draconian.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't like what's happening
Right, so
in
not,
Texas.
of course,
Yeah,
not
but
business as usual in that sense. I'm at the hotel now and I still have to wear a mask and that sort of thing. But relative
to you and where you're living. So is this...
Dave Rubin is never on somebody else's show and not caught slipping. That's funny as fuck.
Is this because the election is over, or is this because the Recall Gavin movement is actually...
So, I mean, a bit of criticism that I have for Joe Biden is that he, at the beginning of his presidency, he was asked if he wanted to do another kind of like a stay-at-home order 2, to have, more widespread lockdowns. And I don't think you can do that without actually paying people to stay home, because apparently the economy and the profit needs to be continued. So like that came out, And it kind of goes alongside the fact that Biden said we're not going to be able to reverse the trajectory of where we are with COVID in the next couple of months, which we're at the highest death rates that we've ever been, and the cases are still piling on. So that to me, like, is a failure, a bit of leadership by Biden to rely wholeheartedly on a vaccine rollout to help this situation, when again we should have been flattening the curve a long time ago for a lot longer, and we should have been paying people in order to do so. So we're dealing with a situation that's going to continue to get worse, and the Republicans are going to capitalize that as a Democratic problem. Even if it doesn't mean that there's more lockdowns, it might even be the opposite. They're going to start pointing at the fact like Democrats have failed to actually decrease the amount of cases and deaths. So, yeah.
Probably going to happen.
I think it's both. It's one is they got the result they wanted. So the people that are all about unity now and everything else, it's like, well, we got what we want, so it's time to heal and unify, which of course we know if they didn't get what they want, you think they'd be talking about unity and healing. And if we suddenly were like, okay, unity and healing, they'd be saying, wait a minute, the white supremacists are in charge of everything. So that's one level of it. I think the other level is that he's really worried. I mean, I think from what I understand, they have about 1.3 of the 1.5 million signatures.
They want 1.8.
They want 1.8 because they know there'll be all sorts of games played. And as I was telling you during the break, you have to sign its hand signatures, so you can't do it online. So they also keep you locked in your house, so it's harder to even find a place where you can go and sign the thing.
It's amazing they've got that this far in the middle of the shutdown. I mean, it's incredible that there's this close
with
already.
all of the rules too.
With all the rules.
Everybody could vote. They just send ballots out. That's fine. But to recall one of these cretins,
right? You can't do that. It's strange they don't do the recalls by mail-in ballot. I do think he will get recalled, and what I would pray for is that somebody sane, maybe a Rick Grinnell, who is from SoCal and was in the Trump administration and was our ambassador to Germany, and he's a great guy.
He's a really great guy.
And a fighter, because you're going to need, it's not just that you need someone to come in and be a little saner than Newsom. The machine, when people talk about the swamp and the DC machine and all that, the California machine is like, this is a one-party state of the extreme level. So it's not just you recall him and then suddenly things get better.
So what are your liberal friends? I mean, because they've got kids too. They've got to be seeing the deterioration of their kids over a year. Is anybody talking about like these labor unions for schools? What the hell are you doing?
They don't want to go back to school.
Right.
And now Biden's telling them not to go back to school. I mean, it's actually crazy. Again,
that's, I already covered all of this in a previous episode. I think it was the detoxing Ted Cruz and teachers unions and all of that. So I think it's just kind of unfortunate that they're still taking out context of like Zoom classes and what exactly the teachers are requiring that the schools reopen, and that Joe Biden's also on the side of creating a safe environment to reopen schools. They're just perpetuating the idea that they're keeping everything and everyone under draconian lockdowns. And I can't see how that's not going to feed in the right-wing militias that were already anti-lockdown and thinking that this is part of tyranny and that this has to be overthrown. I don't see how this isn't going to feed into that narrative. So.
It was 10 months ago, almost a year ago, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yesterday, Biden's telling us about a 100-day federal mask mandate. What? But this is what I mean. Things are changing so quickly that we're forgetting what last week was like. The internet has done something to our brains, and Twitter and the endless news feed and the whole thing that we talk about all the time is doing something so that things happen so fast that, when George Orwell...
Well, God, he's bringing up Orwell. I kind of agree a little bit, but the thing is, though, is that this has actually been part of America for a while, is that we only really focus in on what the media is having us focus in, while the internet does open a flood of access to information and events happening globally. It's not really necessarily something too new for Americans, is that we have something happen and then about a week later or even a month later, we have moved on. So, and that's kind of what they want with the insurrection on January 6th. They want everybody to just move on from that when it's a much more serious situation that's going to evolve. So
wrote about things getting put into the memory hole. Trump will be memory holed.
Oh yeah.
All of the things that have happened over the years that don't fit the narrative will be memory holed. We forget. So suddenly you're like, oh, well, why not? Just 100 more days of masks and 100
Right.
more days of this. And okay. And then guess what? In 100 days, they'll say, oh, now the UK strain actually morphed with the Brazilian strain.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but you're going to have to live underground for 3 years. And people will go, oh.
And the thing about that is that is an actual possibility. What I find very interesting about the coronavirus is that there's been already like 3 or 4 different variants. So like the contagiousness of this virus and its ability to cross species lines, like the possibility that we got it from bats, and then there was a ferret. I think it was ferrets. It was some kind of rodent out in the Netherlands that had a new variant. So like the ability for this virus with its contagiousness and then also its mutations happening very rapidly, this is actually a possibility. As you know, there's a variant right now that we know of that's in the UK, and we question whether already it's here in America. And then there's also the variant in South Africa, which seems to actually not respond to their vaccines, so they may have to make an alternative. And you can put on your tinfoil hat and say this is all manufactured if you want to, but then that ultimately just kind of harms the reduction of the spread and the combativeness of this virus. So I don't really see him proposing any solutions, because the only way to actually stamp out a virus is to decrease and destroy the spread of the virus. That was how we were able to knock out polio and smallpox from the United States, is because people weren't catching it and spreading it.
Okay. I mean,
I don't think so. You know, the people in, where is it?
We're not going underground. That would be nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they're revolting now.
Yeah, they're
finally.
revolting. Yeah. Sweden? The Swedes?
I know.
I mean, they don't do that.
No.
And if the Swedes are starting to stand up against their government, you've got something going on in the world. Something big going on.
You know, I was in Sweden a couple of years ago, and I was on tour with Jordan Peterson. And one of the things have you been to Sweden?
Yeah, I love it.
I mean,
the thing about and I think Poland's having anti-lockdown things going on too. And there was another country that I had just seen. They're a little bit more third world, so they don't have a lot of the resources that we do. But I mean, putting people under lockdown, but not giving them access to economic means to continue their lives, or even the purchasing of commodities to keep the economy going. Like, putting people in lockdown isn't the answer. There has to be remedies that go alongside it. And I've always argued for this point. There's no point in putting people under lockdowns without giving them the financial resources in order to continue living. But they don't want to argue for that either. They'll constantly bring up, well, what about our deficit? We can't keep printing out money.
I mean, one of the things that's remarkable about Sweden is, especially here in the Stockholm area, it's so clean. Everyone looks perfect. They all look like they walked out of a magazine. Everyone looks like they just bought their clothes that morning. So these are people, to your point, that are kind of satisfied with life.
Yeah.
So the idea that you've got the people of
Which is strange, because they pay so much in taxes. Why? I thought that was something that we wanted to avoid entirely. Because, I mean, how can you have such clean streets if you aren't paying such exuberantly high taxes? And yet there's something to admire here in this specific point. But when we come to their democratic socialism, no can do, buddy.
Sweden now, and we're seeing this through a couple of the Nordic countries. I think it's happening in Denmark too. That you have these people now revolting. How far can you push people? And we're being pushed in every way. I heard you guys.
And it's very interesting to say revolting. I feel like it exaggerates the situation, because if we consider our anti-lockdown protests to be revolts, then they were pretty big failures. They were a big flex, but they didn't actually get substantial change. And I wonder how much Biden is afraid of doing these extended these extended lockdowns in a time of such volatility in the country, when we do have mobilized militias who are completely anti-democratic policies. And I'm talking liberal.
You guys talking about the GameStop thing.
Democracy.
Everyone, so the average person that's now getting in the game is now being told they can't get in the game.
Correct.
And you're locked in your house.
Correct.
And
Power
big
to the
tech might
players.
take you out.
The Great Reset yesterday, we were talking about how they say that you're going to have skin in the game because it's stakeholder capitalism, okay? And when you dig into it and you're like, okay, they say you're going to be a part of it. You're going to get the benefits of it. And finally, you'll get the benefits. How do you get the benefits? I'm not at the table. I'm not even in Davos. You won't even really show me everything that's going on, and you're certainly not asking me for my opinion. Well, they say because your representative government is in place of you.
Glenn, you know when somebody tells you how good of a friend they are all the time?
Yeah.
The constitutional representative republic works is that they are elected in place of people. Now, if we wanted to go towards a direct democracy conversation, they got to stop bashing mail-out ballots or mail-in ballots. The Great Reset is both like a conspiracy theory because people are building it around the Great Reset that was named in June 2020. But Wikipedia says the Great Reset is the name of the June 2020 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, bringing together high-profile business and political leadership convened by the Prince of Wales and the WEF, World Economic Forum, with the theme of rebuilding society and the economy in a more sustainable way following the COVID-19 pandemic. So they're building a conspiracy theory around, basically elites trying to figure out how they're going to establish basically an order after, this virus has been introduced. And the thing is that we do have to worry about this virus past 2020 because of the way that it has spread, especially through the United States, but around the globe. So it is going to have variants. It is going to have mutations. So we have to kind of take that into account. The only thing that I worry about here is that the WEF is made up of people who aren't necessarily that interested in working class interests in order to rebuild a society and economy that is more sustainable. So, yeah.
That pretty much means they're not a good friend. That's pretty much what these people are doing. When we're looking out for you.
I know.
You're not going to own anything, but you'll be taken care of. We're going to give you universal basic income. We're going to make your life better. No, it's so fundamentally the opposite.
That's the unfortunate thing about neoliberalism is that it does say that the individual has their best interest in mind, but it also focuses in on business knowing what's best. So, I agree a bit with Dave Rubin here, but I'm not 100% sure there's enough evidence or through line to post that on what's exactly going on here. But I would honestly admit that the power structures at B, the more that their power is threatened, the more that they will hold tighter to said power. So I kind of agree with Dave Rubin, but the people that they continually paint as enemies are not necessarily even the ones that are within their political lines, where I would say that there is a bit of Republican and conservatives and business interests within those parties that are also contributing to this so-called Great Reset. But they're focusing it in on these smaller enemies that aren't within their political party and kind of demonizing them rather than including the whole group of business interests that continue to benefit off of the austerity of working class.
Of what anyone liberty-minded should think, which is just that give me a chance to live and get out of my way. That's all I ask for. That is all I ask.
And that's why, I argue for socialism is because people's houses, food, healthcare, should be provided. And in that way, you already have a dignified life and, with less work hours are able to decide what to do with your day and maybe even transform your life into or manifest it into the human being that you want to see. But they think that grants too much freedom to possible laziness or even lack of productivity. But I think if we give everybody a baseline level of opportunity or equal opportunity, which is everybody has a house, everybody has food, everybody has a car, that's the equal opportunity baseline. And then from there, people can create their outcomes. And it mostly drives in the autonomy and not having people dependent on subsistent living wages of 40-hour to 60-hour work weeks, which tend to contain and control the amount of autonomy that you have over your life.
Where I think that's what most of your listeners want in life is just the opportunity. It's the American dream. Give me a chance to play in the game. And now the system is saying no.
Back in FDR's day, they perverted the American dream and they made it a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. That's not the American dream.
No.
The American dream was just leave me alone so I can make my own way. This was the only place in the world you could do it.
But by saying it like that, that means you have to earn the house, you have to earn the car, you have to basically earn your worth in living. You have to earn your value in society. And painting it in that way makes it sound like it's somebody's choice to do that, when in reality, if you don't make that choice, you're just going to starve and be homeless and then tossed to the side of the waste bin of society. So by giving people those baseline common necessities right there, then you allow people to then participate in society in which way they see fit.
And now we are worse than some countries over in Europe. It is harder to do things here in America. We've lost a lot of our liberty.
So that's it. But yeah, liberties are kind of being crunched upon, but I think having uh, workers unions spread across almost every industry and having like a kind of forum for workers unions to try and balance out the political interests that are always meeting with each other, um, not political but also business, by having broader unions and bargaining power in working class citizens, then maybe we can start moving the pendulum towards a more egalitarian society where workers are also considered into the interests of the nations. But that's not what they're arguing here for, is that, you know, we keep the status quo and stop interfering with people getting jobs, and jobs are freedom. And like, that's not necessarily true. As soon as you sign that social contract or voluntary employment, then parts of your day, parts of your life, and, you know, a pretty big portion of it is owned by the person who you agreed to work for. And that's why I think that unions need to be in place in order to make sure that there isn't high levels of exploitation going in on that, and then later reforming it so that people aren't necessarily required to earn capital for somebody throughout most of their day, and they can start really choosing what they want to do with their lives. But I didn't laugh as much as this in this as I thought, because Dave Rubin didn't say anything that was too ridiculous. He definitely was wrong, and he's on the wrong side of history, arguing for basically the continuation of everything that's going on, but blaming everybody for the problems that we face without providing any broader solutions. That's what ended up happening. I thought I was going to laugh more. That's too bad. But you know, consider market socialism. Do some research in market socialism if you're not necessarily into with completely reforming everything. Market socialism actually just tries to focus in on creating more workers co-ops, and, you know, less alienating of laborers and giving more meaning into their work. And then maybe we can work into giving everybody their baseline opportunities, equal opportunity, by having the same starting line as everybody else. But I don't think eliminating or even achieving equality of outcomes really going to be a thing, just because of the fact that there's always going to be people who work more or earn more or do those things. It's just the hoarding of wealth, and also the contradiction of holding people's days, 8-hour days, and saying that they're free is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's so fascinating how the right-wing media or thought heads, talking thought leaders, have basically moved the goalpost that capitalism is the key to freedom, when for a lot of people it is actually the shackles that hold them down. But that is just today for Tox News. I thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time for another detoxifying day of bullshit. All right, so that's when the outro music's supposed to play, and I fade away into the abyss of nothing. Got him.